The voice of the Hoosiers joining us right now, Don Fischer. Chop Shop, brought to you by Chop Shop Market and Table, of course, where you can find Don, at least for the next, how many more weeks, Don?
Actually, this will be the final show for the men. We're actually not going to do a show the week of the Big Ten tournament because Indiana might be traveling on Monday, but that will be a show. There'll be a show there that night, and it's going to be all ladies. It'll be at 7:05, the normal time for the Woodson show, and Austin Render will host it, and Terry Morin will be the guest along with players and coaches on her staff.
So we'll look forward to that. You got another week, though, of Don out at the Chop Shop Market and Table where
Tonight.
you can tonight rather, and come out and join and enjoy a fine meal while they chit chat. Don, a big win for Indiana for so many reasons. They needed it. It was a road win. They were down big. I think I sent out a text or tweet during the game that Indiana starts to come back. I said, we've seen this before. Can they sustain it and get all the way back? And boy, did they. They won that game going away in surprising, shocking fashion. They hit up to one time 12 shots in a row and hit 80% free throws. I'm like, what the hell's going on? But it was certainly fun to watch. The fans enjoyed the heck out of it, and I know that it had to be a lot more fun for you to broadcast.
Well, there's no question. The last two ball games, the Wisconsin ball game on Tuesday and then the ball game against Maryland yesterday, both really good wins for this program. Both were very much needed, to say the least. Without question, Indiana had to win that Wisconsin ball game. They did not want to lose their fifth straight contest and I think get a sixth home court loss on the season, which would have been detrimental, obviously. And then on top of that, I think one of the real keys, and I know some people are going to go, oh, we've heard this before, but Xavier Johnson coming back, despite the fact that he didn't play great against Wisconsin, but all of a sudden I think this team looks different. It looks more confident. It looks like it's capable of playing a good basketball game. And certainly yesterday in the second half, they're down 10 at halftime, and we've seen that before. For whatever reason, they didn't do a good job on Jameer Young in the first half. They let him get to the rim. For 10, 11 points, I think, in the first half. I think he hit like 5 layups along with some free throws in the first half. All of a sudden in the second half, they shut him down. He was not getting to the rim hardly at all. He had to do almost all of his damage from outside in the second half of the ball game. That's just a good adjustment and good defense on this guy. And then they started making shots, and they were phenomenal in making shots in the second half. They shot 73% in the second half of this ball game, 19 to 26. And knocked down threes. They were great from the free throw line. They were great from the 3-point line, and they were terrific just shooting baskets in the second half. And without question, I mean, when Indiana plays like that, they can beat anybody.
And this was a game that Kel'el Ware, I'm not going to say he wasn't there because he was doing a job defensively and rebounding from a scoring standpoint. After coming off of a 27-point scoring performance, it was a lot of, we were wondering, all right, how's this going to come back? And he actually, that shows some maturity when things aren't going your way, but he still found a way to contribute and to be a part of what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, the second half of the ball game, I mean, he barely touched the basketball. If you think about what Khalil did in this game, or what Indiana did, because Indiana didn't just go inside. They started shooting outside shots, and they had everybody contribute from the outside for the most part. You had Anthony Leal and Gabe Cupps and Xavier Johnson all hitting the threes in this ball game, along with Mackenzie Mbaku, who had 4 of those threes. And when you've got different guys knocking down shots, all of a sudden you can play different. I mean, you play different offensively and you play different defensively. The intensity level with which Indiana played in this ball game, to me, was a huge factor as well. And I want to give credit to Xavier Johnson here. I mean, he played a terrific ball game.
Absolutely.
He was
They don't win the game without him.
no, and why were we more effective at getting Jameer Young shut down? Because Xavier Johnson was out there on the floor with his strength, his athleticism, his quickness, his ability to disrupt things for the other team. And I know that we've said all along that Mike has talked about for way too long about Xavier not being out on the floor for his team, and some people making that like an excuse. But the reality is he hasn't been available. And yeah, you've got to find somebody else that can help you in that regard. And the help hasn't been dramatic by any stretch of the imagination. But getting him back, all of a sudden, this team looks different. It just does.
And oddly, he coming off the bench seems to be working for him. I don't know if it gives him a little bit of time to relax, take the game in and see the flow of the game and then come in, but he has just been performing pretty well off the bench, and especially in this game, very efficient, 5 of 7, 13 points. He had 6 assists to 1 turnover. And if you get that Xavier Johnson, Indiana's going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I mean, X didn't play great in the Wisconsin game, but he wasn't bad. He was 2 for 3 from the 2 for 3 with a 3-pointer in the ball game. Yeah, he only scored 6 points, but at the same time, he was out there and he was disrupting things, which is what he can do as long as he can stay out of foul trouble and he makes the right choices out there on the floor. He really helps this basketball team, no question.
Mackenzie Mbako, his continued growth is really starting to show. The back half of the season, he has really shown it's the Mackenzie Mbako that people expected to see from the get-go, but he is really starting to pick it up as far as being consistent. 24 points, 8 of 15 shooting, 4 of 8 behind the arc. He was 4 of 4 at the line, as was Malik Renew, but that 8 of 8 free throws from those two, it's so important because this is a team that had just been giving away points and games at the free throw line.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana's percentage is 66% on the season. That's just awful. And that's a team total, but you need to be right around 70%. And obviously, Indiana hasn't been there all year long. The free throw shooting has been abysmal at times. But in this ball game yesterday, they played exceptionally at the free throw line, 14 of 17. You've got to have that kind of performance if you're going to win ball games, especially in this league, especially at how tight everything is in this league right now. Anybody on any given night can beat anybody else, excepting Purdue for the most part. I mean, Purdue has been beaten a few times this year, but not dramatically. And it's been good fortune for other teams that have been able to accomplish that feat. But the fact of the matter is, everybody else in this league is capable of beating you if you don't play some of your best basketball. And it's been proven out by the number of games that are close and by all these teams that are still all stacked in there behind Purdue.
Yeah, and so next, Indiana stays on the road as they travel up to Minnesota to that wonderful place, the Barn. I hope you take your jacket. But talking to Todd Leary, he loved shooting in that facility. He said, I don't know what it was, but it was always a good shooting gym. What? Because it's kind of one of the more unique facilities in the Big Ten. What is any different perceptions you see when you've been there for the guys?
Well, where we sit now, I don't see anything different because we're in a bad spot right now. We're up in a corner, which is way away from one of the ends of the floor.
Nobody puts baby in a corner. Don, come on. What's going on there?
Well, we got put up in a corner there, and it's the worst spot in the Big Ten to do a game from. But all that said, the difference where we used to sit, we were up in the balcony, which was not a bad spot. And the reason it wasn't because the floor there is raised like 3 feet. The whole court is raised 3 feet. If you watch, when you see a game at Minnesota, both teams' players come up and go up steps to get on the floor. So like 2 or 3 steps. I think it's 3 steps that they have to take to get up on the floor. So it's a unique place. If you go too hard at one end of the floor, at either end of the floor, and you go without worrying about hitting a wall or something like that, you're going to fall off the deck.
That would scare me because you see guys a lot going after a loose ball or something. I'm surprised it doesn't happen, but obviously they've been doing it there for a long, long time. But
Yeah.
Indiana going there now, and this is another game that they're playing a team that needs to win this game. Minnesota is fighting to stay out of the bottom. They're fighting. I'm sure they still have hopes of an NCAA tournament bid, well, although I think that may be faint, but they still have hopes. So they can't lose a home game. Indiana, they're in the same boat. They can't lose either. So this is must win for both of these teams.
No question. In fact, that's the case in both these games coming up for Indiana this week. The two teams that are in front of them in the Big Ten standings right now are Minnesota and Michigan State. Both of those teams are who Indiana plays this week. So Indiana controls its own destiny. And Minnesota and Michigan State do as well. So everybody's got the same thing. They're fighting for the same thing, to stay out of that Wednesday ball game in both games this week.
Yeah, I was up really late looking at numbers, and if Indiana wins out, that would put their 16 and 13 now. That would give them 18 wins. If they win 2 games in the Big Ten tournament, that puts them at 20 and 14 if they lose the next one, or even if they win 3 games. I don't know that they can make the tournament, only because of their metrics are so bad.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense when I look at some other teams. You look at Maryland, you look at Ohio State, they're so far above Indiana in these things, and it makes no sense. But something I did watch in regards to the Big 12 is their early season schedule was against really low-level teams, and they beat the crap out of them and got their net rankings up really high. Now they just beat up in each other in the Big 12, and none of those are bad losses, so they don't take a hit. But right. Indiana's matrix numbers are so unbelievably low. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't hold on any hope whatsoever for the NCAA tournament. I just don't, unless they make a big run in the Big Ten tournament, which is possible. The way they played these last 2 ball games, and if they could come up with 2 wins heading into the tournament, you just don't know. But the fact of the matter is, you don't want to play on Wednesday night no matter what, because if you do, you're not going to make it to the Big Ten championship. You're just not this year. Because anybody can beat you. That's the whole thing. It's proven that anybody in this league can beat anybody on a given night. And the teams that get the double bye, they're just sitting there waiting and resting and being able to get ready to do whatever they have to do to win. So it's such an advantage to have the double bye. It's still an advantage to have the bye, but if you don't have it, I don't think you got a chance. So right now, Indiana's fighting for its life. These 2 games this week are going to be critical in that vein. And I think Indiana's season will end as soon as the Big Ten tournament's over with, because I don't think they can make the NCAA field no matter what, because of what you just said, the metrics.